some of you guys know me, some of you guys you don't know me. I have been working on the Oracle environment since 1996. And this morning, as I was listening to Pablo about this Oracle OTN ACE program, I am an Oracle ACE director, and I'm very grateful to Oracle because 20 years ago when I joined Oracle, I still remember my first interview. And I mean, I've always been open, so I had my interview and they asked me, well, what do you know about Oracle? And I say, absolutely nothing, nothing. And it was true. I mean, 20 years ago, I didn't know anything about Oracle. But for the past 20 years, I have been learning a lot. And my area of expertise, of interest, is around performance, database performance, SQL tuning. Hasn't been the only thing. I mean, before that, I did e-business, I did PeopleSoft, I did Civil, different areas. The only reason to do that is because I wanted to learn. Before Oracle, I had some life before Oracle, which was Unisys. I did IBM. I worked with big IBM machines, mainframes. Some of you guys may remember 4331, big IBM, maybe? Yes, no one? What about Adabas? Well, I did Adabas and a lot of things. And within Unisys, I was there when Unisys became Unisys. It was coming from Boros, Esperi, became Unisys, so I did a lot of development back there. I started really young. I mean, I was doing coding at 16 years old. I was already doing coding. And I would say, I mean, these days are a little bit different. My son is 28 and he's chasing Pokemon. And me, when I was 16, I was already working. So I had the opportunity to develop several tools over time. One of them is SQLTXPLAIN. Who knows SQLTXPLAIN? Some of you guys? Good. I mean, SQLTXPLAIN is like 16 years old. I mean, the first version, I mean, it has been maturing, it has been changing over time. I developed SQLTXPLAIN because I needed such a tool. I was the only user, I was the first user, so I had to use my own tools. And that is something I'm doing also today. I mean, I am the main author of eDB360. I would say the main author because there are many contributors, including Rodrigo over here. Yeah, and many others. I mean, the beauty about these tools, and I would include, I mean, SQLTXPLAIN, SQL Health Check, eDB360, a bunch of scripts, is that we're building these tools from the community for the community. These tools were never sponsored by Oracle. Oracle uses them all the time, and they have become mainstream, and this is the first one, has become mainstream within Oracle, and also the second one. But in terms of investment for Oracle, it was zero investment. And I think that is a way to build tools. I do consultant work. As a consultant, you do a little bit of everything. I mean, I do performance, I do database health checks. These days, I'm also doing sizing. Sizing is when you say, you know what, we're moving to the cloud, or we want to consolidate a bunch of databases. How do we do about that? I mean, we have to compute what is the right system for us. We do that. We do proof of concepts and anything that comes. Some training every once in a while. I am a member of the Oracle ACE program. Also the OraPips. OraPips is something small that we started recently. It's just a bunch of guys that we want to share tools, we want to share knowledge, so we created this community. I'm working for Enkitech. Enkitech is a small company that was acquired by Accenture like a couple of years ago. So now Enkitech is part of Accenture. And we're still in a group that we work a little bit on our own. It's like a small team of 100 people within Accenture. And my motto is life is good. I really believe, I mean, life is whatever we want to make out of it, okay? So for today, we only have 40 minutes, actually. I'm gonna go a little bit about motivation. I mean, why we need eDB360. Then I'm going to explain and show how do we download and execute this tool. How do we consume the output? Every once in a while, like Rita was talking to me a few minutes ago, and she was saying, okay, I have used SQLTXPLAIN. I download the tool, I execute the tool, but I am not that sure about the content. How do I go about reading, consuming the content? The same happens with eDB360. You will see the content is huge. It's a little bit intimidating, but once you get to see some patterns and how you can navigate through the tool, you will say, yeah, it makes sense, I can give it a try. That one went too fast. And I'm gonna go and do some navigation demo. I'm gonna take some files, real files, and I'm going to actually show you, how do we navigate through the output. Motivation for eDB360. Well, we have this principle of the least privilege. This principle has become quite popular, meaning whatever you do on your work, many of you guys are DBAs, right? So we have some DBAs here. Some of you guys are developers, right? So everyone has a different role. Basically, with this principle, we are given the least amount of access to a system, to a computer, to a database. Also, we have motivation cloud. As we're moving to the cloud, we don't get full access to the environment anymore. So we may get a SQL Plus connection, but we don't get to use Enterprise Manager or any other big tool. That is a reality. Or maybe we have some junior DBAs and we don't want to give the junior DBA access to everything. He needs to start little by little, right? Sometimes we have developers. We want the developers to see what is going on in the database, but without allowing them to modify anything on the database. So you can see what is going on. Here you have a SQL Plus account with access to the data dictionary, but you won't be able to change anything. Yeah, that's also true. As a consultant, it's quite often that you are asked to verify the state of a database. Just check my database, tell me what can be improved on my database. But you are never given access to the system. So you know what? I want you to do everything remotely. I don't want you to access my system. Then what do we do? What can we do? And then in my case, it's health checks. In our case, we do health checks. We need to verify how a system is performing, how it can be better. So everything here is motivation for eDB360. Yes, we can do a lot with just one SQL Plus connection to the database. We can fully understand what's going on that database. So what is this tool? First, free tool. Who likes free? Everyone likes free, right? Yeah, I love that. We all want free tools, free software, free conference if possible. Everything has to be free, right? So that is eDB360. It's a free tool. Installs nothing on the database. One comment that I got over years, one feedback from SQLTXPLAIN was, well, can we have something like SQLTXPLAIN, but without having the requirement to install anything on the database? And that is stick on my mind. I always got that question. I always say, it is not possible. With the functionality that we have with SQLTXPLAIN, I have to install something on the database. Then when I joined Equitech, I continued with that question and say you know what? And I talked to Mauro Pagano. Who knows Mauro Pagano here? Some of you guys? No? Okay. I've been working with Mauro for quite some years, even before Equitech. And I told Mauro, you know what? I think we can do this. We can do SQLTXPLAIN without installing anything on the database. And then talking we decided to create SQLT360, which is basically a child product of this one here, eDB360. So we have these two things, eDB360 and SQLT360. eDB360 is for the entire database, and SQLT360 is for one SQL. It's something similar to SQLTXPLAIN, but it has like three main differences. One of them is installs nothing on the database. So if you are using SQLTXPLAIN, you may also want to try SQLT360, which is also free. Okay? I wouldn't be talking about SQLT360 if it were not free. So eDB360 provides an entire view of a database and everything through SQL Plus. SQL Plus can be on the client. If I had SQL Plus on this machine, I can connect to a database, run eDB360, and it creates enough information here that I can get an understanding of a database. Or I can run it from the server. Only requirement, the user has to have access to the data dictionary. DBA views, $B views. Basically, that is it. That is what you need. It doesn't have to be sys. It doesn't have to be like a super powerful account. Could be pretty much a user account or an application developer account. It works on 10G to 12C, Linux, Unix. I don't mention Windows because we don't have that many clients on Windows. So that means it runs on Windows, but it's like 98% of things work on Windows, but not 100%. So even if you have Windows, you can do that. And it's super easy to use. When I say super easy to use, if I show you how do we download, execute eDB360, I think it's much better if I just go ahead and do it. And then I show you the slides for reference for later. So this is my blog. If you cannot read, this is just my name, carlossierra.net. On the right-hand side, where it says downloads, there is a link that says eDB360. Just click on that link. The software, as you may have noticed, is coming from GitHub. So I'm going to put this on my download directory. So now I should be able to see it from here. I have the tool is there. So I use any FTP. In this case, it's an FTP client, which I can just drag and drop. Basically what I did, I don't know, I mean, GitHub is on the cloud, so I don't know exactly where is the repository. So I took this file, put this file over to my Mac over here. So now it's in Brazil, the tool, right? So I put it on a server that we have in Dallas. So now the tool is in Dallas. I connect to that server and I just put the tool there right now. So the next step, I unzip it. There it is. So now I have a directory with that name. So I'm basically just going to that directory, and within the directory I only see a few files. I connect as a user that has access to the data dictionary, and then I just execute this script. When I execute the script, it's gonna ask me two questions. The first question is, do I have Oracle Tuning Pack, Oracle Diagnostics Pack, or nothing? In my case, I do have Oracle Tuning Pack, so I answer with a T. And then the second question is, do you have a configuration file? And actually, I don't. I will explain about the configuration file in a moment. 99% of the time, you don't. Just hit enter. When you hit enter, it has a pause of 30 seconds that gives you time to check what is the state of your data in which eDB360 is based. So it's saying, okay, your ASH data is 14 days old. So if it were older than 1 month, it may take some time to execute. Then your last DDL that you had on ASH it requires some automatic partitioning. It's 0 days old, so that means it happened last night. And I didn't get to read the last one. But anyway, after 30 seconds, it continues. If something is gonna take time, then you have the opportunity to kill the tool, take action. Usually the action is gathering statistics on AWR, usually. And then the tool right now is running. So it's run the first SQL, the next SQL, and so on. Depending on the size of the system and depending on the size of your data dictionary, this is so sticky here, it may take, in this case, it takes less than an hour to run. In some cases, it may take up to 24 hours.
Can I run this tool with stats pack?
Can we run the tool with the stats pack? Yes and no. It has a small section about a stats pack, but that section hasn't been reviewed or hasn't been enhanced. So it's doing a little bit with the stats pack, but not a lot. Okay. Now, if
I'm running on standard edition, where this tool collects the info from VDollar views?
So the question is, if I were running on a standard edition, that means I have no diagnostics pack. Where do we get information from? So in that case, I mean, we get a little bit from the stats pack, and pretty much it. I mean, it shows you information from dynamic views, yes, but if I want to see history, I may not have enough history. Yeah. So now, if that is your case in real life, you say, you know what, I have several databases using standard edition, and you contact me, so you know what, can you enhance the stats pack portion? We can certainly do that. Okay. So right now we haven't had the need to expand that portion, the stats pack.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we don't have that. But let's say, this is a really good question. I know that it is common in some places, possibly Brazil, correct me if I'm wrong. Some clients, they don't have the enterprise edition. Some clients, they live with the standard edition, okay? If that is the case, you have a client or you are working on a place where your database is a standard edition and you don't want to venture yet, acquire the diagnostics pack, then you may want to use Tunas 360. I didn't mention Tunas 360 here. That's another tool that Mauro developed for us, for the community, which requires no installation and it requires no diagnostics pack, no tuning pack. So that is perfect for standard edition.
Yeah.
Of course, it doesn't show you any history, right? But it shows you what's going on in your system right now. Just give it a try. Just Tunas 360.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. So this one is going, and it may take some time to go. So in the meantime, I'm going back to the PowerPoint. So I explain what is eDB360, super easy to use. And this is, this is the smile that brings to my face. Who likes coffee here? Everyone, right? Who likes American coffee? No one. Well, this is the Brazilian coffee, okay? So if you want to learn more about eDB360, just Google it. Just Google it, just type in eDB360. You will get to see what is going on with eDB360. And there are more entries than the one that I published. This is for you to keep. How do we download the tool? Just go to my website, to my blog, and look here where it says download. If you see something that says OTN LA 2016, don't click on that, okay? That has all the PowerPoints for this, for this event, okay? And the tool comes with this README. The README is basically showing you exactly the same steps I did. It has to be README, something I learned a long time ago, working with a DBA. Say, if you want the DBA to read a README, you have to make it less than 1 page. Okay, it has to fit, the terminal. It has to be able to read everything in one shot. And that's what we
Something
have.
like patch set readmes.
The
Something
what?
like patch set readmes.
The readmes?
Yeah, the readmes from patch sets.
Okay.
They are very long.
Oh, no, the one has to be short. So that is the readme. To execute, as I showed you, just download it, copy it to the database server or to the remote client, unzip it, navigate to that directory, connect as a user with access to the data dictionary, and then execute. That is exactly what I did. I'm not expecting you guys to remember this, but once you have this PowerPoint, or you just go to my website, the instructions are there. So it's very, very easy. Output. The output, it creates one file. It's a huge file. It's a zip file that contains everything. When you unzip that file, you will notice it has thousands of files. Does it take time to consume? The answer is yes. Yes, the more you know the tool, the less time it takes to consume. Because basically, once you're familiar with navigation, you know where to start, and then depending what you find is the branch that you take. But the first time, it may take a day easily to navigate the output. But I can guarantee that after that time, you say, I have a good picture of what's going on with this database. If you try to do the same with SQL Plus, I'm not very good at typing. I've been typing for 20 years, and I still type with 2 fingers. So, yeah, people will ask me, how did you write SQLT? SQLT has 150,000 lines of code. How many people help you? I say, well, I only have two people helping, these 2 fingers. Yeah, so with 2 fingers, you can type 150,000 of lines. It takes a few years, but you can do that. Then, when you unzip the file, just look for this one. There is one main file, which starts with 001, and it says index, and it's located at the very top. You will see it. Once you unzip it, you see this file. Just click on that file, and then just start browsing the content. That is the best way to do it. And with that content, you get to see everything that is going on that database. It looks like this. Okay? And it's not even complete. There are some pieces here which I had to truncate. Can you read that? No, me neither. Don't worry, me neither. But what you see here in brownish, those are links. Where you click the link, it opens another report, and so on. So it's a little bit intimidating But basically, whenever you click one of those links, it will show you something like this. Some title that tells you where the data is coming from. Then it shows you some data. This is a table, an HTML table, where you can actually click on any column so you can sort on the fly, whatever you care. Then it shows you a description of this entity. And more important, it shows you the SQL behind the data. So you have 1,000 different reports. Whenever I see a report and I don't see where the SQL is coming, I mean which SQL created the report, in my mind is, can I trust this data? I don't know how it was produced, right? So I'd rather look at the SQL to understand the data that I see here. So that is the same construction for every single report. It's an easy way to learn, because if you make sense of the data and then you say, okay, I may just want to execute this piece for another database. Well, just cut and paste the SQL from here and you're done. Does it make sense? It's very easy. I mean, people like this, because they learn on the fly. I mean, they see something, they want to put it on some other script and run systematically. It's very easy to do. Then it has something like this, which on SQLTXPLAIN, I never got to do this, which is using more data visualization to basically transmit a message. I mean, what do we see here is performance over time for the entire database. And this is coming from Google Charts. Google Charts are free. It's another API that is free. So why not using someone else's tool to basically enhance your tool? And the answer is, why not? Okay?
This is interactive, right?
This is what?
Interactive?
Mm-hmm. Directive.
Interactive.
Interactive. Yes, it is interactive. That's a good question. Actually, I'm going to show you. You know that this PowerPoint, I want to show you an actual file. So you can zoom in. Well, it's interactive, but just keep in mind, we are not connected to the database. You took a snapshot of the database. This file is totally isolated. You can give the file to someone else. This someone else open the files and can see all this information, and they can click and they can zoom, okay, without connecting to the database. The connection to the database only happens when we execute the tool. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of information here that gets captured forever and ever. I mean, if you want to do this every month, let's say we have a month of history. In this case, it's like 1 week, but let's say we have a month of history. And you want to do this eDB360 snapshot once a month, then you can keep these files on a repository. And then you want to see what happened 6 months ago, you can open the file and the file works. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So with Google Chart, we have nice things. I mean, we can put the mouse over, we can see, in this case, basically, we're just showing the different weight classes for a particular point in time. We can see that at that time, we have 19 sessions on CPU, and we have 24 sessions on I/O. So, for example, here, that we are getting up to 150 active sessions, maybe the main concern should be one here, concurrency, 100 and something. Once I see concurrency, then I start navigating eDB360, looking for concurrency. Does it make sense? It depends what you see, is where you say, you know what, next I'm going to be doing this, and then I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to be doing this, and so on. One thing I learned many years ago from Tim sitting back on the last row is doing data mining on Ash. I remember attending one of your sessions, Tim, in which you were talking about Ash and how we can do a lot of data mining, and actually you show some scripts. At that time I said, you know what, it would be nice to have a tool that collects all that kind of scripts and put them everything together. They're glued together, so I run one script and tell me all these different dimensions and all these different aggregations. That is eDB360, okay? So for that, Tim, thank you. So we have those zooming capabilities thanks to Google Charts. We have some pie charts. We have a lot of information I want to show you. And I don't know, everyone is different. One time I asked a guy, I was developing trace analyzer. Do you remember trace analyzer? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Well, trace analyzer is one of my tools I developed a long time ago. Also, when I was working for Oracle, I don't make a lot of publicity of trace analyzer because I don't like it. At a time when I developed the tool, I really like it a lot, but after I saw Method R and I saw so many other tools which they do an awesome job, I mean, basically doing data mining on a trace, I was a little bit ashamed, so I said, I don't want to mention Trace Analyzer. But one thing I learned with Trace Analyzer, in those days I started rendering information in more than one way. Text, HTML. And people would ask me, why do you still show text when you can show HTML? And the answer is, some people prefer text, like myself, okay? Some people prefer HTML, and some people prefer this. Pie charts, line charts, bar charts, and it's true. I mean, everyone is different. Everyone has a different way to see the data. I see it better on text, but people may see it better with a chart. Okay. eDB360 also shows information on AWR, ASH, ADDM. Whenever we do a health check, we ask for information, right? We need to collect a lot of information. Typically, when you want to understand what's going on with the database without having access, you ask for AWR reports, right? Who asks for AWR reports? Who is familiar with AWR reports? But one of the challenges that we have is to collect the right AWR reports. If I get an AWR report that covers 12 hours, well, I do not have enough granularity to tell you what's going on your system. So eDB360, what it does, it analyzes how the system has been used over time, and wherever it detects there are some spikes of interest. For example, I had a spike last week, but then I also have another spike 3 weeks ago, and I had one yesterday. So when I have that kind of situations, it's looking for some spikes at different times, and for those moments, it generates automatically AWR, ADDM, and ASH reports for those times. So when you collect eDB360, you already have the AWR reports and ADDM and ASH for the times of interest. Does it make sense? Yeah. That basically reduces having to go back to the DBA and say, oh, I noticed this spike. Can you get me an AWR for this time? Why? There is no need. I mean, if the tool can investigate that for you and can give it that automatically, why not? So another thing that is important, it's quite common that the entire system, when you look at the load, well, 3, 4, 5 SQL statements are consuming a big chunk of the resources. Sometimes one SQL could consume 25% of the resources, just one SQL. So I'm going to be talking, well, I already mentioned SQL 360. So in that case, it gives you a list of SQL statements of interest. So automatically it finds which SQLs are big consumers. And for those SQLs, it generates PlanX and SQL D360. SQL D360, you click this link, it's a zip, and it contains like 1,000 files or more than that for one SQL. We cannot do that for every single SQL on the system, but we can do that for a small set of SQL statements, those that we care. So far, so good? So in this case, eDB360 and SQL D360, they collaborate. So one tool calls the other tool and gives you everything for one SQL. Yes, question?
The tool takes the snapshot at the moment you start running, right? Not, it doesn't collect the data continuously while it's running.
That's a good question. The question is if the tool monitors the execution, it collects whatever it knows so far. And it's the second, it collects whatever it knows so far. That means it collects what we have from $V views and also what we have on DBA hist views. But it doesn't keep listening and watching the SQL as it goes.
Okay.
And actually there is no need. With ASH, there is no need, because we can rebuild the history based on ASH, and that's what we do. We look at the history and we tell you what happened. Yeah, and if there is any other question, don't wait to the end. You can shoot your question. So demo, I'm going to open a couple of files. I'm going to show you how it looks in real life, and then I'm going to randomly navigate from place to place. So here I have 3 samples. The output looks something like this one line. It's a zip file, and when I unzip the file, it creates something like this that has many, many files. But as I mentioned before, just go to the very top it has a README. This README is not the same README as for the installation or the execution. This README basically says how it works, and then at some point it basically says open this file, open the index. So I'm going directly to the index, and I'm going to do the same for the 3 samples, so we can do this in parallel. So I'm going to open the second one, and then I'm going to open the 3rd sample. So right now here I have in 3 tabs, in 3 tabs, I have 3 samples of eDB360. One thing you will notice, version. Version here says on the year 2016, this is version number 7, this one version number 9, this is version number 7, 5. So I have 5, 7, and 9. It was just by the way it happened. Every so often, I release a new version. That so often is like at least once a month, there is a new version of the tool, okay? And it's not that I don't work, I have my work, but I usually do these tools on my free time. But I did the same with SQLT, it was free time. So once I get here, like, where do I start? And if you ask anyone, Rodrigo, where do you start when you're looking at eDB360? Where do you usually start?
Well, if you're doing a health check, right, we go from each tab in sequence, so we get the information from everything. But if you're looking to top consumers, then we go to the right.
Exactly. That's a good point. If we're doing a health check, we need to understand everything. I do the same as Rodrigo. I look at basically every single column. But if my concern is performance, let's say in this case is performance, I usually come here to column 5 and open the first report of column 5. And I'm gonna do the same for all of them. So you get the feeling what's going on here. Column 5, and I open the first report. So for one of them, I get this. This column 5 first report is average active sessions per weight class. So look at this one here. I see here from May 23rd to June 20, I see the load on my system. I notice, for example, some spikes, they go as high as 150 sessions, and I have 96 CPUs, so that would be maybe a concern. As I mentioned before here, I can drill in, and I can see a little more detail, okay? Now look at this load on this system. If I look at the same load for another system, this one is different. Notice, I mean, it's a different shape. The load of every system is like a fingerprint. It's totally different. So in this case, I notice, I mean, we have up to 100 sessions, and there are some spikes. And if I just take randomly one part of it, I may notice I have 22 sessions on CPU, 25 on user I/O, and so on. And for the last one, let's see, oh, look at this one here. Look at the number of sessions. This is like a lot, right? And we have in this system, we have an average of 288 CPUs. This one is a little bit impressive. I mean, we notice, I mean, CPU is around 500. Can you imagine 500 sessions on CPU? That system is kind of busy. But we also notice we have some significant weights. Look, for example, here. I don't know if you can read that far, but look, for example, on CPU we have 500 sessions, yes, 170 on I/O, and then look at how many cluster weights and how many concurrency. Configuration is also high. So right now, if you put your hat as a DBA, what would be your first concern here? Or question?
What's happening with the cluster?
What's happening with the cluster? Yes, this will be a concern, right? Concern, you will say, okay, what's happening with the cluster? Why do I have that many sessions waiting on cluster? So this one looks like it's a rack database, right? And if it is a rack with 4 nodes. So we can see the same chart. Now we can segregate by node, and we can look at one of them. But one thing I want to show you in this case, I may be interested in interconnect. So let's find the interconnect part here, interconnect, and let's check some metrics for interconnect. These are megabytes per second of interconnect, so I can actually check, I mean, what is the amount of data that we are transferring. we can see, for example, and then I can see per instance, I can see some summaries. And here I can also see the times. For example, AK messages, what is the latency? I want to see the latency. And the latency in average is 0.8 milliseconds. Is that good? Is that bad? How do you consider 0.8 seconds latency? It's good, right? Yeah, we can say it's good. Let's check on the other system just for the sake of comparison. In this one, the latency is 2 milliseconds. And let's check the last one. Is that the last one? I think the last one should be this one here. And look at the latency of this one here.
This is very good.
0.15. So now if I ask you the same question, 0.8, is it good? Yes, it is good, but what would happen in this case if that environment that is consuming a lot of time waiting on rack, if we were to make rack faster just by doing this here? So that means in this case we can say, you know what, I can see an opportunity how if we were to re-platform this system without any changes, we can significantly improve the wait times for rack. Is that clear?
Yeah.
That is just to give you an idea. What is the kind of analysis we can do? And I just show you a couple of reports. Keep in mind, there are hundreds, if not thousands of reports. So it takes some time. I mean, if I were to navigate an entire eDB360 with you guys, it would be several hours. Now, configuration. You notice it had two parameters. One of the parameters was a tuning pack, diagnostics pack, and the other parameter is about configuration file. You don't have to pass anything, but it allows you to change configuration. As time passes by, people say, okay, what happens if I only care for one column, or for a range of columns, or I care for these many days of history? I mean, I have more than 30 days of history, but I only want to see what happened last week. That kind of questions, they are answered with the configuration file. Configuration file, I don't know, you can read some of the entries here. The first one basically tells you which sections of the report, every section of the report says column 1, column 2, and so on. You can basically name a section or a range of sections, and basically the output is restricted to that piece. Or you can say how many days you want, or a particular range of dates, and so on. There are several things that we can change. Now, we have two options. We change that directly here on the configuration, or we just cut and paste that parameter on a secondary file, and when we are asked for configuration file, we pass the second file. The second file is an aggregate to this one here, and it overrides whatever we put here. Is that clear? That's a little more advanced, but it's good to know. At least you have to remember, if you're using eDB360, that at some point, you may say, I want to change the behavior of eDB360. How do I do that? Configuration file. So we have only like 5 minutes for questions and to wrap up. So any questions you may have? You have to have some questions, right? Question?
No, I have a
No?
question a lot.
Okay, go ahead.
What's the meaning of the numbers when you show in the graph? For example, you have the average sessions, every active sessions.
Yes.
Then is it sessions or wait events or what?
Okay, average, that's a good question. Average active sessions. That is a term that when we are working performance issues, that is a term that was kind of fabricated, I mean, out of, it's like a standard, it became a standard. We didn't have that before, but over time I say, okay, how do we measure, how do we compare apples to apples? Think this way. Imagine that everyone here is one session. I mean, one session, one session, one session. If I take a snapshot right now, this session may be doing I/O, and this session may be doing CPU work, and this session may have some cluster weight at that time. When I take a snapshot and I keep going, every second I do the same, every second I take a snapshot of all the sessions, then with that data, I can aggregate any way I want, okay? So imagine that when I do this, I find 25 people or 25 sessions are on CPU. So that becomes here on the average active sessions, it will say 25 are on CPU. Now, that granularity is 1 second, and whatever we show here is 1 hour. So we need to aggregate, right? So we need to take all these 3,600 snaps. I have to aggregate them, and then I have to say, in average, if I divide, the aggregate divide by 3,600, I can tell you in average how many sessions were on CPU. Does it make sense? Let me repeat it. Take a snapshot. I have 25 sessions on CPU right now. Take the second snapshot. I have 26. Another snapshot, I have 20. Another snapshot, I have 30. Another snapshot, I have 31. It changes constantly, right? When I take the average, it tells me, oh, in average you have 23.6. That means basically how many sessions I had in average working on CPU. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so any other question? We only have 5 minutes left, so we have time for...
But with historical data, AWR throws away 90% of the sessions, right?
Which is perfectly fine. AWR throws away 90% of the data. So that means from every 10 snaps, I only get to keep 1. But when you look at this, in 1 hour, you have 360 snaps. So it's the same way that you're trying to send a picture from your phone and say, what is the granularity that you want? The more granularity, the more space. The same happens with AWR. We only keep 10% of what we collected. So for memory, for the past 1 hour, we have 1 second granularity. But when you want to see the past 30 days, you only have 10 second granularity. But it's fine, because with those 10 second granularity, instead of dividing by 3,600, we divide by 360. But it's the same thing, we just get the average.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So it gives you a very good idea what's going on. You don't know up to the second, but it tells you in average how you're doing. Okay, so one more question, if there is any. If not, we are done. Well, one question here.
Is it any special parameter on the database side, like statistics level or something like that to run this?
Do we need a special configuration database? No, but if you have diagnostics pack, which is AWR, you have diagnostics pack, it basically is based on data from AWR. Most of it has some data from $B views, but I would say like 95% is coming from AWR data that is collected there. Okay? Good question. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for attending.
Thank you.